Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting LLC for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. Okay, welcome everybody to the Orange Hammer Podcast. We are here today with Deb. Pronounce it for me again.
Lovig.
Lovig. Okay.
Long O.
Long O. Okay. Deb Lovig. Okay. And we met at the networking event. Remind me the name of it.
It's the South Durham Rockstar Connect networking event.
So my friend Glenn, who has been on the podcast, told me about that. And his pitch was very interesting, which is, it won because he was like, well, Namu is such a great spot.
Well, of course.
And I was like, I actually have been to Namu for like coffee and side dishes, like with my kickball team as like kind of a social thing. And I was like, yeah, that spot's great. So that's was enough.
Part of the whole equation.
Yeah.
It's a great gathering for people to just get together and meet each other. And I always suggest that people come with the idea that there might be someone there that can help.
Yeah.
There's no agenda. No one stands up and gives speeches and that sort of thing. So
that's
it's a
what
little
attracted
different.
me to it.
And then you just can't, you couldn't pick a better location and food and drink and the whole thing. So
yeah. It is a great spot. And like they're not a sponsor of the Orange Hammer Podcast, but if you're in the Triangle area, like Namu's a great spot. They have live music, a beer garden, a coffee bar, a regular bar, actual real food.
Awesome
they really
food.
do like all the things, and it's interesting. You pull up and there's nowhere to park, and then
course.
you go to where you want to go, and it's empty because
Right.
there's like an event you didn't know that was happening in the back of their restaurant because they have such a massive footprint.
Many different garden areas. They
Yeah.
have live music Wednesday nights, which is also when I have Rockstar Connect the first Wednesday of every month.
So for those listening that are interested in going, is it just a matter of show up at Namu the first Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m.?
Yes.
That simple.
It's that simple.
And
you
it's
can
in
go
the
ahead and
front
sign
bar
up
area.
on Eventbrite or Facebook, but we'll welcome you. You don't have to have tickets.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not. There's no, like you said, there's no agenda there. You don't have to buy a ticket. It's free. You just go get a beer like you would any night and relax. And I mean, everybody
and meet
there.
new people.
Yeah.
And I learned a number of years ago from a great business personal coach, Heather Hollick, who wrote a book called Help, and it was about networking mostly for introverts, but it's for all of us. And She taught me that the magic question when you're going to go to a network event is, what are you working on? Instead of what do you do?
Right.
Because at that point I was in marketing, and I say marketing, and what are you going to do with that? You don't have a whole lot to respond with. But if you ask what someone's working on, you don't know what they're going to say. And what I found is they can be working on something in their personal life, something at work, something with a pet, and you get very quickly to a much deeper, richer conversation.
Something more relatable.
And maybe you can help.
Yeah. That does make perfect sense, because if you said I'm in marketing, I'd be like, okay, cool. But if you're like, I am working on a campaign for Red Bull or whatever it is, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, Red Bull. Like all of a sudden, it makes perfect sense that there's a jumping off point rather than a dead end to the conversation.
Well, and then if you've introduced yourself to me and I know what you do, then I might say, and you know what? I'm having trouble building this scaffolding that, it just keeps falling over, or something like that. And all of a sudden we have a connection, and maybe you can help me. Maybe you can't, but you can at least connect and see where things go from there.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no such thing as a network that's capped. Like, you should always be growing your network of people. I mean, at the moment, like, from that event, the last thing I need is a cartoonist and a money person. And I've met with Tom just for a great cup of coffee, because we connected and he was nice, and we bonded on some stuff. And I've had Ed on the podcast. And,
awesome.
And yeah, and he's just like this hilarious, goofy old dude who I don't know, we also connected. I love his art. And I don't know if he specifically told you about his like Chapel Hill drawing map small business project, but yes. I was like, dude, that sounds awesome. We got to do a Durham one. I want to be on that. How do we get that going? And I was like, I was throwing out ideas just left and right. He was like, that seems like a good idea. That seems like a good idea. I was like, I just love the idea of it. It was just so cool.
Well, and you just walked right in that, how can I help door?
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true. And he brought cannolis.
Now I feel bad.
No, that's not even, I'm not trying to do that at all. But like when the guy walked in with cannolis,
it was a win.
I was like, okay, bud, like that's perfect. Yeah. And we have a second podcast scheduled, because after we didn't talk about anything construction, homeownership related, for like an hour, he was like, we need to do another podcast, because I've worked every construction job in my life. And I was like, oh, I actually would love those stories. So we've got one next month. We're going to run down all his odd jobs in the construction field. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. And it can be very entertaining.
Well,
in retrospect, probably not in the middle.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm sure while you're working them, that's not fun. Digging trenches for foundation. So, perfect segue. For on the construction side of things, do you own a home / have you done work on a home? And then, because I know you're a realtor professionally.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I moved to Durham in 1993, and we actually built a home, our first home. We didn't build it, but we had a new construction. It was a custom build. Learned a lot. Probably don't want to do that again, but okay. And then
I got to cut you off. Why don't you want to do that again?
Well, I think the thing for me at that time was that I didn't realize, particularly in a custom build, you have to pick everything, including the face plates for the light switches. And I don't care that much about that level of detail. But since then, I was in marketing for innovative technology companies at that time. And since moving into residential real estate, a lot of that experience has come back to be very helpful. And yes, I do own my home now in Chapel Hill. So I moved to Chapel Hill in 2013. and have the same things that everybody else has going on in their homes, and, maintenance and refreshing, remodeling, all of that sort of thing. So I think my personal experience has been very helpful for my professional experience and understanding systems and who to call.
Right.
Who's the right person to call for the particular issue we're looking at.
Yeah. And then obviously you get to use that. You get to use the personal knowledge to help you professionally, but then your professional contacts, you get to call them, oh, we needed a plumber. I'm sure as a real estate agent, you must have 17 plumbers in your Rolodex, and or at least 17 people who have a plumber, so like that ability to mingle the professional and personal worlds just must make life so much easier in that regard.
And I think it makes it easier for my neighbors too. Once I made myself available as a resource, I get a lot of texts, hey, water heater's failing, or hey, do you know someone who can do this kind of paint job, or hey, I'm thinking about doing this, who do I call, or who do you work with? So I like to think of myself as the good neighbor.
Yeah, I kind of have the similar thing going on with my neighbors. I'm doing 2 projects, 5 houses up the road that way.
Right.
And I've worked on that house next door.
Right.
She just moved out and bought a house over by like South Point. And she already was like, so I think I'm going to need you to look at the attic because maybe I want to make it into a living space. And I was like, I did that twice. Let's go. Yeah.
Right.
Let's spray foam it and sheetrock it and add some outlets and some lights. Let's do it. So I guess the tools and tricks that you've probably used in your personal remodels are, well, I guess it's not all from your professional world because you said you built that house in 93. Mm-hmm. So
95 and 96.
95.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you were when it was time to, you said you did like some renovations for that house you bought in Chapel Hill.
Yes. Yeah. I did a lot of remodeling. I wouldn't call it renovation. Okay. I did a lot of remodeling. It was about 10 years old and it had been a rental.
So what kind of projects are we talking about?
I changed all the light fixtures. I was in LED lighting, so everything had to become LED.
Yeah.
Painted everything. New carpet upstairs, which I have since just recently replaced with hardwoods to match the downstairs.
Nice move.
New appliances. All of the fun, pretty things to do.
So more of like a facelift.
Yeah, it was it was a remodel as opposed to a renovation. It's now 20 years old, so I'm thinking about the bathrooms, and that's more of what I would call a renovation.
Right, where you probably got to gut those down to the studs and do like a new shower pans and
yes,
glass, and because I don't know, I don't try to assume, but most homes have like one fiberglass tub.
There's a lot of that out there.
Yeah, exactly. The fiberglass tub surround that like one piece that is leak proof because it's one single piece, but it's hideous. And
they do wear out.
Yeah, everything wears out by the drain, sure, but comparatively to the tub and then 3 walls, like there's no seam,
right?
So you at least have that to not wear out. There's no such thing as forever, unless we're talking, I don't know, stone pyramids or something. Yeah, there's especially the way that we build. I feel like everything's shelf life is getting shorter and shorter.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Appliances are a big one on that.
Yeah.
I grew up with the same appliances. I think my parents had the same appliances for 20, 30 years, and now they barely last a few years, in the single digits. So
yeah, I feel like if you get 10 years, that's like you did it.
Right.
Like that's perfect. Yeah.
Right.
And same for, I'll tell homeowners, and I'm curious your opinion, and maybe you tell home buyers that, your HVAC unit and your water heater, they've got 10-year shelf lives. Like they're not designed to last forever or even close to it. So that 10-year in a day does not mean throw it out and get a new one, but just know you're now on borrowed time, and you should be prepared for it to conk.
I think what I do when I'm helping buyers, and I know home inspectors do this too, we start talking about the age of these major systems and when they should, or that they should start budgeting for future, roof replacement, HVAC, water heater, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's a good move.
Those are major systems. So just being aware of that, I think then when you start to notice a little leak or there's water in your garage because that's where the water heater is, you know exactly what you have been planning for this.
Yeah. And also, I think, I don't know anybody who stresses it, but it doesn't seem to be stressed enough for homeowners that like it's a consistent and constant checking and maintenance. You shouldn't really wait till something like catastrophically fails. You should be checking it kind of regularly. For your HVAC unit, it kind of slowly dies.
You get clues.
Yeah, like it doesn't usually go from like it's working at 100% to like it is now off and you need to replace everything. The last time I had mine cleaned, the guy was like, "So you should know, you're at about 80% efficiency right now." And I was like, "Oh, how do I get that 20% back? Do you like have to adjust something, and do I have to get a new part or something like that?" And he just kind of chuckled and he was like, "No, man, you need a whole new thing. Use this till it breaks and then get a new system." And I was like, "Oh, crap." I was hoping he could like replace a capacitor or something like that. Not at all. So like, I mean, it's different for a water heater, obviously, that kind of just like, really all you can do is replace a heating element. Other than that, you got to just replace the whole thing.
Yes, and the HVAC, your air conditioning will go out on the first 90-degree day of the season.
Yeah.
They always go at inopportune times when it's so obvious that you can't hardly stand it. So that happened to me with my air conditioning in this home. And then I knew that my water heater was end of life. And I figured it's going to go out on one of those important days like Christmas Eve or whatever. Well, and I kept saying, just replace it, just replace it. Well, it went out over the 4th of July weekend.
Did you have guests?
No,
Okay.
no, but it didn't totally fail. It just started leaking. So I was on top of it. But I shut it all down, and at least it was hot, so I didn't need hot water.
You're lucky there at least. Yeah,
Yes.
If it was January 3rd, it would have been tough
different.
taking a couple of days of showers, like ice cold. Yeah.
Yes.
I replaced my hot water heater before anything went wrong. I just switched from electric to gas, and
Okay.
that was how I got the gas trenching from the city, from Dominion, for free. Because they were like, it's gonna be $1,700 or $1,400, I think, to do the trenching. And I was like, holy crap! I was like, is there anything I can do about that? And they were like, no. The only way you get the trenching for free is if you're like pulling enough gas monthly.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
And because I was switching over the gas just for a grill,
I see.
and a fireplace, which is not enough. And so I was like, what do I have to do? And they were like, well, if you have gas heat or a gas water heater. And I was like, oh, well, I've always wanted the tankless Rinnai on-demand hot water heater. They're just more efficient. They end up costing you less. And it's just like it's nicer physically when you take the shower. And so I talked to my plumber and I was like, hey, man, you're already under the house putting in all new, brand new gas lines because there was no existing gas lines. Like I said, getting it trenched from the street. So he's running from where they're going to put the meter to my stove, to my grill, and to my fireplace. And I was like, so at this point, what's one more to the water heater? And he was like, well, other than the cost of the water heater, like another $200. And I was like, okay, I just paid for the water heater, basically. Yeah. In my head, I was like, well, the 1,400, the water heater 1,600, like that's close enough. Plus I wanted that. And like, yeah. And what's cool is a lot of people don't like gas. It scares them. So I left the perfectly working electric water heater in place with the wire run, but the breaker is now been used to something different. So it would cost a new homeowner almost nothing to hire an electrician to just rewire that breaker and start using the electric water heater and abandon the gas if they were like that scared of gas.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I was always trying to think about like resale. Even behind my gas stove, there's still the 220 electric range outlet.
Right.
If you want to swap them out, that
right.
Take 2 seconds. Yeah. And if you want to abandon the hookup to the grill and put a propane tank under the grill that's not attached to your house, you can still use the whole setup. Like it's very easy to convert. So that's an easy.
That's interesting. That listing is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Electric heat or electric water heater, gas water heater.
Yeah, you get to say there's both.
You get both.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it will come with like the gas range. There won't be both ranges, but there'll be both hookups. Yeah, because that's what happens when you convert. I converted from electric to gas, so it's like I wasn't about to rip out that electric wire for no reason. I just left it there. You know, it's a big, thick wire with a big, huge 4-prong outlet, you know, so it just seemed like the easier thing to do. And it was my plumber who recommended to keep the electric water heater, mostly because he didn't want to take it to the dump.
Right.
He was like, well, it still works. I was like, yeah, actually, there's nothing wrong with it. At the time, it was only like 6 or 7 years old. He was like, let's drain it and leave it here. I was like, okay. It's bothering nobody in the crawl space.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's literally taking up no room. So, you know, yeah. So that's what I did at least.
Yeah. I went ahead and got a tank water heater. It was during a time when it was really hard to get water heaters, but one of the things that my plumber told me was if I went to the tankless, it still has an electrical turn on.
Yes, 100%.
So I want hot water if the electricity goes out. Now I know there are workarounds, and I just didn't at that point know about it. But if you're thinking about doing a tankless, find out how they do the workaround, because that'll solve your problems and you'll have the best solution. Yeah,
that is a good point. I don't have that workaround wired. I have heard that like it's as simple as like you could literally wire up a car battery that when the power goes out, because all it is the tiniest. It's just a regular 110, which for those listening is the tiny wire that goes to your regular outlets and your regular LED light switches, just to keep the little like digital screen on with the temperature that you set it on. It's just taking very little juice, but you still it will not function without that. So that's a very good point that I actually have completely forgotten about. And when the power goes out, I just take cold showers, but I don't mind cold showers. So
okay, then
different.
You're fine.
But it hasn't happened in January, so I might be preaching something different, you know, in the middle of January.
We'll have to have another podcast after you go through that.
When the power goes out in January, I'm going to give you a call and be like, so you were right, and I need to wire that up pronto. Yeah, yes. 100%. Yeah. So what's your I don't know, specialty, for lack of a better word, in the realty world?
You know, our market is so interesting because we have so many people moving in from other places.
Yeah.
And last year in particular, I found myself going a lot of places, seeing a lot of different types of homes, and really being very much a generalist. So when people come in, or when people are looking to buy their first home, a lot of times it's about the type of property they're looking for. We can maybe find that in Durham or Pittsburgh or Fuquay Varina or Wake Forest or a broad geographic area. So while most of my business is in the Durham, Morrisville, Apex, Chapel Hill, Pittsboro area, I have been with clients looking for properties and purchasing properties in Wake Forest and a little bit further south. But
the world has kind of opened up with the work from home lifestyle,
yes,
where all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't need commute becomes irrelevant. So let's get a nice big house with some offices that we can work from home in.
right.
So
It's a type of property that, and I usually try to find out if there are things that are anchoring them. Is there a school? Is there a church, a house of worship type of thing? But if they're wide open, then that means we're just looking at the whole MLS and the whole triangle area to see what fits.
do you primarily work with first-time buyers, or it sounds like you primarily work with people moving here for the first time?
We all are moving, or I would say in general, we are all working with people who are moving in from other places because there are so many of them. But I work with first-time home buyers, downsizers, people who are looking for their forever home. The differences are really interesting because people looking for their last home, their forever home, are going to be very specific about what they will accept and won't accept. So that tends to be a longer process because we don't just find generally the home they want to start off or are in the middle. I work with a fair number of those folks. I tend to like to have my buyers in particular have some experience looking at homes. So we might see a lot of homes before they're actually ready to buy. I also work on the listing side, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. So wait, if I understand you correctly, before they're ready to actually look at a home they might be interested in, you'll just have them go look at some random home just to get used to looking at homes?
If buyers present to me and say, I think I want to buy 6 months from now, when should I start looking? We should start looking as soon as we have you pre-qualified with a lender, so we know what your budget range is, because I want them to have some time in a market to see different homes that fit their parameters, not just random homes.
Okay, so it's still within their zone.
Right, so that they get some experience, because even if we saw on the very first one the home that was right for them, very few of them feel like they're going to jump on it. And if it's a highly competitive home, we have to be ready to offer strong,
right,
fast and strong. And to get there, if you've seen a number of homes and you start to tease out what the value proposition is, what you get for this price, and watch how those homes sell and close, you have more confidence when you walk in the door and say, this is the one, don't lose it. So then we have a different type of conversation about offering. Our market has tightened up in a very extreme way. We have too few homes for the number of buyers. We slowed down last fall as the buyers were readjusting, thinking about what the interest rates were doing, what the housing market was doing. We came out in, I would say, January and February with the buyers ready to go and very few homes coming on the market.
And now interest rates are insane.
They're higher, but there are still ready, willing, and able buyers. But the number of homes has really tightened up. So we're still usually in a competitive situation for a good home in a good location. So I can tell when my buyers have enough time in the water or time in the market looking, they know when the home is right, and then they offer to win it. So and then on the listing side, I think it's really helpful to have perspective as an agent. What's probably going on the buying side and what's probably going on in the selling side. If you only work with buyers, you don't have the other side of the deal. How does it look or how does it feel on the other side? And if you only work with sellers, same with not understanding what the buyers are going through. So I like to do both and have kind of a balance if I can do it. It's been a little harder with fewer homes coming on the market. There are definitely more buyers, but it's helped me help my clients to just to add that perspective. Here's probably what's going on, or here could be something that they're concerned about. And then I've just had some wild experiences that I can always tell stories about.
Oh, we got time. So what is happening? I mean, like my not real estate brain, but real estate adjacent, I like to say, would think like, okay, you don't have that many homes and you have an abundance of buyers. Does that mean when a home comes on the market, it's just flying above asking very fast? Because that's what was happening. But you said the market has cooled. So it's interesting that there's still this abundance of buyers. Are they just patient enough to, like, just if it's not what they want, they're not going to, I guess, jump on it and overpay for it?
I
know it's a generalization.
I think the market, I don't know that the market has cooled. It slowed down last fall, so homes were staying on the market longer. And some of the listing prices were adjusted downward and then they went under contract. But instead of selling in 2 days, it was 2 weeks. And it tended to add a week the further we got along in later 2022. But I think that was because buyers were trying to figure things out. So they were slowing themselves down a little bit. That coming around to the first of the year, the buyers were ready, but we didn't have a lot of homes. So if we have a good home in a great location coming on the market, it will sell very fast. And I have been in those situations. And yeah,
as the
they can
listing
sell
agent or trying to get it for somebody.
Buying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you? I mean, is it just day one? You've got to be like, look, we're going in above asking. You got to go.
Well, we go look at it.
Well, yeah,
and
yeah,
if
obviously.
but we have to look at it on day one.
Right.
We got to get in there fast, if at all possible.
Yeah. None of this. We can make it on Thursday.
That's
cancel
right.
your plans. We're going.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to go in and we're going to be ready to offer if you love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have my comps ready before we look at the home. Usually my buyers already know the comps because we've looked at a number of homes or we've already offered on a number of homes.
And you're in a realm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And some of them last year and this year, it's been very painful to lose them and to lose them with a very close, our offer was very close to what they went for. But,
I didn't jump. I have since got the land now and everything's working into the plan perfectly. But when I was looking for raw land, my realtor would send them to me and I would be like, yeah, well, let's go drive by in 2 days. The next day, she'd be like, oh, it's gone. It went for $15K above asking. And I was like, they didn't even perk it. They don't know if they can build on it. They were like, they don't care. Somebody who doesn't live here bought it. They don't care. There's investors that are talking millions that don't care about, I'm buying, this was like $90K worth of land at the time, not small potatoes, depending on who you're talking to.
Right. And
so for like massive land developers from out of state, they don't care. They'll figure it out. They'll put in an unconventional system. They'll do, they'll find a way, they'll dig a lake and make less lots or something. But I was like, I was being nonchalant about it. And 10 out of 10, they would all be gone before I even got out there. Or the
But you
one that I would
learned.
finally go out to look at, it would be a cliff. And 6 acres on the MLS, there's a quarter of an acre that's buildable. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And you got to do $100,000 worth of culverts and bridges and stuff. And I was like, obviously, there's a reason for that. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, you learn though.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and then you get ready, and that was your time in the water.
Yeah.
Being nonchalant, you figured the market out, and then you were ready.
Yeah. Well, I guess I inadvertently did what you purposely do with your clients. I started looking before I was ready to buy because I just was like, well, let's see what's out there, just because I was a little curious, and it was in the back of my head, like if the perfect parcel pops up, like I want to start designing my forever home. And, you know, sure enough, the one perfect one, it's kind of an annoying story. Basically, I found the perfect parcel, but even though there was a physical road, there was technically no legal access because it was chopped in half, and the half in the front, let's say, was the access from the frontage road.
Right.
And so once this became 2 pieces, this parcel had a physical road but no legal access. And so it was like 8.5 acres with its private pond, undeveloped. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly where I want to be. It's like 14 minutes out from downtown Durham. And I basically got too impatient waiting for not even my realtor, the lawyers, to talk to the like 5 kids who inherited the land from the previous owner to all basically just sign a piece of paper.
Right.
That says I can use the road, even though you can't even sell landlocked land in North Carolina. Right. So it had to work out. And I just like got impatient and backed out. And then they figured it out, and the guy in front bought it.
Yeah.
But it worked out. I found 11 acres outside of Hillsboro, so like everything's fine.
Well, you have to remain philosophical, and
I've
found this to be true. I've had a couple different buyer clients lose out a lot, but that was last year. And in the end, we found the right property. And to your point, one set of clients would look at a home and deconstruct it. Well, we're going to move this wall, and we're going to do this and this and that, and it would be perfect. But everybody else was looking at the house as, well, let's just paint it, and then we were good to go. It's a different view on it.
Yeah, the perspective.
So they offered differently.
Yeah.
Until we found the home. First, they wanted to move in a home that wouldn't have to do anything to. But over time, they figured out, and I finally figured out, that they were looking for a home that they could deconstruct and make exactly like they wanted it. We found one, and it is the perfect home. Solid bones. Everything is great. And the structural engineer said, yeah, you can do this. Of course you can do this. And it was a perfect fit.
Oh, the answer is always yes. It's just money.
Well, and they explained what it would take too. Yeah. But
you want to take out that wall? Let's get a beam. Let's go.
Right.
I love it.
Right.
That's my dad's favorite thing to do.
That was all good. And I think that the part of what was important for them was the work, creating their space. So we changed completely for the type of home we were looking for. And we found one that had been sitting, and it just didn't show well online.
How long does it take you to realize that? Because no one's lying or trying to deceive you in any way, but they were just, they didn't even realize what they really wanted. How long does it take you to really dissect and figure out that they don't in fact want what they said, which was, what'd you say, a
move-in ready. Everything,
yeah, that's
everything
the term
done.
I was looking for. And in fact, they want, we want to gut this down. Yeah,
we do. We want a project. I think it took us about 2 years.
Okay.
And we also went from wanting to be out, have some land, not many people around, to, oh wait, we really want to be in a community neighborhood with a community feel to it. That's just part of the process. And that's, again, why getting started, seeing homes, getting a feel for neighborhoods, knowing what parts of the area look like. And in the end, they ended up exactly where they were supposed to buy, and happy, really happy. But I think we lost out on 13. I think this was our 14th offer.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And that is not
so many
a
homes.
Call I wanted to make anymore. And it would always be at like 11 o'clock at night.
Right, because they're waiting on the best and final from everybody.
And I would have to call and say we didn't get it.
By $5,000.
Well, I don't know. I'm not saying that they were $5,000. I've had people miss for $5,000. I've also had people get the call to say, would you be willing to match the would you be willing to do these things? And that is because I like to, my background's marketing. So I'm marketing my listings as strongly as I think, I try to figure out how they compete with the other active listings. But I also do that with my buyers. I like to show how they're the buyers. They're the strongest. And these aren't love letters. These are ability to close, ways of showing that we have resources, that we are going to be the folks that are going to close with you.
Just making it more attractive for them to pick you.
Yes. And if you're close, and a lot of times there are close, my first listing, I had 5 offers that were identical. Well over list price. And there was nothing different about that. So that was a hard one. My seller just had to simply choose. And
like
I felt
same amount of money.
Mm-hmm, yes.
So they just pick a name out of a hat.
Yes. I mean,
do you not go back to them and be like, who wants to close faster?
This was in 2017, and it was before we figured out a lot of things about multiple offer situations.
Hadn't learned
and how the market works. And I think, and we've gone through generations, so there were different ways that we as agents were working to try to get that call, and it's kind of settled back down to really it's highest and best. And when you do have those ties, I went into triple overtime with one just earlier this year. 2 of us were the same. So the agent did say, okay, you're equal. Would you like to increase your offer? So we did. We were evidently equal again.
Wow. That's gotta hurt.
So it's an interesting time.
That's when you're like, we could close now in cash. Yeah.
Well, yes, except they have to do things like title searches and all of that.
No, of course. That's not a realistic. Yeah, that would be irresponsible. Not even like an inspection or anything like that.
Some people did do that.
We've done that, but we're buying houses we're gutting, so inspection is
it's
useless.
A different level.
Yeah.
It's a different type of purchase.
Exactly.
So an investor purchase, a lot of investors walk through. They know immediately what their numbers are, what's going to be touched, and
when every house we've bought, we've literally gut to the studs completely. So we don't even care. We're like, oh, it's got foundation damage? Cool. We'll jack it back up. Like, we know how to do that.
It's a different look at it.
It's completely, But if you're buying with the exception of what I just said, get your inspection. Get your due diligence. Always. Especially on a new construction home these days. The corners that I see being skipped are, honestly, it's moved from disappointing to depressing. the corners that I see, like these videos online of inspectors on like TikTok or whatever that I see on Instagram. They'll go into an attic, and the stuff that is being missed on like homes that have passed COs is shocking. And homeowners, for the most part, would have no idea that they're looking at something that just looks wrong, or wouldn't have no idea to go to the area like the crawl space of the attic to look at the thing that is wrong. And it's like it's scary, like some serious stuff that's just being skipped because like people are building way too fast, trying to compensate for the lack of homes.
They are building as fast as they can, I
Yeah.
think. I always recommend home inspections, even if it's a new construction. I have heard in a couple cases of time frames not lining up right with a builder, but I think in that case, with a little bit of experience, you can talk to that builder and say, you didn't give us the time frame. You didn't tell us when we could inspect. Let's delay closing because we didn't get the opportunity. And then usually you get it. But the home inspectors will always find things. I found that the builders will take the home inspection report and do those.
Yeah.
I prefer to have those done before we close.
Just advice for people who are having a home built new construction wise: hire an independent contractor just to do 5 inspections at 5 crucial points at your house. Just for him to walk through with literally a flashlight and the plans and just be like, okay, well, at least the hurricane clips are there. Just like a fresh set of eyes. It can be such a difference maker to catch the stuff at a certain point in the construction when the fix is simply to add something rather than the fix being to like, oh, we've got to take down a lot of finished stuff to get to the missing thing. That then becomes annoying and expensive.
I haven't had that level of a change. I did have an instance where they framed the home and the timbers used in the attic were black.
From mold?
Yes. And we had it tested by an environmental firm, and it was mold. So that all had to be scrubbed and treated, and it was.
But the bigger question is why? How? What was getting in there to cause that? That needed to be addressed.
No, I suspect the timber was laying out in a stack somewhere for a while, and they just picked it up and used it when they should have thrown it aside.
It's possible. Who knows? No. Seems like an aggressive amount of, although I don't know. Yeah, it's possible. But either way, that's scary. And mold, I feel like, scares homeowners the most. That's the biggest thing.
I think mold is in general a concern. Any sort of water issue is a concern.
Water is the enemy. I say it on this podcast all the time.
And so, I think I tell my folks whether I'm looking at a listing to list, a home to list, or looking at a home with my buyers to purchase, I always have my handy flashlight, and I'm always looking at ceilings, looking at foundations, looking in crawl spaces, looking at the underside of the roof, if I can, just to see. And these homes are puzzles. Once they're all put together, you just have to try to figure it out. And then we have to get people who are experts in those areas to look at them if we find issues, if we are concerned about issues.
Yeah, I get most of the time when a realtor is hiring me just to look at an inspection report, to then price like what it would cost so that they can then go to closing and be like, okay, we're going to need 15 grand off because of these things. It's not to price the whole 120 page, because those inspection reports are insane sometimes,
Right.
down to the loose doorknob.
Right.
It's like, hey guy,
the door that rubs.
that's not worthy, of like even worrying about. But most of the time it's foundation. It's usually like, hey, we see this mold, this vapor barrier is usually old, ripped, not covering, standing water, rot in, floor joists usually. And it's always just a water entering crawl space issue. Usually.
And of course, this is North Carolina. We get a lot of rain. It's also humid here.
And the clay really holds that moisture a little bit more than a regular soil, and that just is it's the worst for houses, and for foundations. So you're moving, settling, it's terrible. But they get a little bit better every couple of years. Now we've kind of moved from we've moved away, I should say, from the vented crawl space. They're doing the encapsulated crawl spaces, and that's really helping. Where you're just, now the crawl space is conditioned just like your house.
I know some of them feel like they're just a conditioned storage room.
Yeah, but it's for those who are like, that seems like a bad idea, you pay like the tiniest bit more to size your air conditioning for that square footage, but it ends up being more efficient because the thermal break, basically the fight that the hot air in the crawl space fights against the cold air in your house, that costs more energy for your air conditioning to fight against that. Whereas the meters, hundreds of feet of earth, that is usually at a pretty like when you dig a foot into the ground, the actual mud, the earth, is at a pretty standard like 60-ish degrees,
right?
Almost year round. Like in the winter, you only have to dig like a foot or two to get below the frost line, and it's like 60 or 40 or 50 degrees. So that does a better job. And then you just insulate along the walls of the crawl space real thick, and it's way more efficient. It feels better on your feet, and it ends up like, especially if your air handler's in the crawl space, it ends up being less tax on that unit because it's not having to work in a humid environment. Imagine us doing manual labor in an air-conditioned room versus a humid room. Like we'd be able to work a lot longer and better in the air-conditioned room. The air handler box is no different. It prefers to work in an air-conditioned environment. So it ends up being much more efficient and just infinitely better on your home. And it's moving that way pretty aggressively. The codes have changed the last couple of years, and like, I talked to my spray foam guys. They're like, oh yeah, if you've got the chance, encapsulate. I talked to my HVAC guys. They're like, oh, 100%. So it's becoming just like the standard. But a lot of these older homes, they have the vents that you see, and then they have the insulation in the floor, and it becomes a bigger project to convert. Like if you're building new, it's easy to just make that decision.
Right.
But they're fighting the humidity any way they can down here. It's tough.
It is tough. So when I work with people who are coming in from other areas, I try to give them a heads up on what we'll find here in North Carolina that they might not be used to. The other thing are trees. And so if you want trees, which I think is one of the reasons we love North Carolina, you have to be okay with possibly a tree incident at some point in your roof. Or it looks like there's been a tree incident that has been repaired. That's just North Carolina. You don't find that in the new construction neighborhoods because they've taken away all the trees. But
yes, I tell people if they have the chance, draw a line 50 feet in a circle and no trees within 50 feet of your house. And I don't even think about it falling on the roof. I worry more about the roots personally. But it's the same concern, you know, either way, it's going to hurt your house in some way. But I think more about the roots listen to water. So they are attracted to the water pipe, either coming from your well or coming from the city. So they'll be drawn to it and then grow along it. And that can be really, really expensive to fix. And then if nothing else, if they're close enough, they'll just mess up the, you know, the blocks in your foundation. The cinder block is weaker compared to the roots growing around it, near it, through it, all the above. And it does it takes so little amount of root disrupting earth to move a block, to shift a joist, to crack the window and the bedroom door doesn't open anymore. Like it takes so little for, and it can affect so many things, because houses are all tied together that way when they're constructed. So it's like you really start messing with one point, and it doesn't take long before you start seeing like real effect trickle down.
So I have a story to tell in my new construction neighborhood in Durham. When we moved in February of '96, and Fran came through that fall, and our builder had finished a group of about 5 homes in the relatively the same period of time. And we were lucky, a neighbor's tree just kind of grazed one of our gutters when it came down. But one of the homes that was finished at the same time had 5 trees go through its roof. So they got a couple of skylights out of it. And then, interesting, later when I got into real estate, I listed that home. And I knew the whole story behind it. And it went through a bonus room, but it had been intended to be a finished room. So it had everything in place to be a finished room. And when that happened, they just took a couple of the holes and made them skylights, and then finished it.
I mean, when you get lemons, make lemonade.
Right.
I mean, what else is there to do at that point?
Right. So
was somebody living in it, or it was
yes.
just being built?
Okay. Oh, no, we had all moved in.
Okay.
And that was really surprising. But a lot of times when you go into attics in some of the neighborhoods that were the last subdivisions built when they left mature trees, almost all of those homes, you'll see some incident that has happened in the past. And it's been repaired and everything's fine. Nothing's leaking.
My neighbor's tree took down a section of my fence.
Oh, that happens too?
Yeah. I hadn't even been living here a couple of years. And I was like, yo, it's all good, but you've seen my 75-pound dog. I'm going to need that repaired. Yeah. Like, do you want to write me a check, or do you just want to call the fence company and have them replace that? And she was like, I'll call the fence company. I was like, okay, cool. And then I think my brother actually just came over with a chainsaw and just like cut it the least amount to throw it in the woods behind our houses, because it's just woods back there. I was like, we don't have to haul this away or make it into firewood. I just need it off the fence post.
Yeah.
But it happens. Yeah. And I don't know if that's even unique to Carolina. I mean, I'm from upstate New York, where the trees are abundant, and we have had our fair share of probably less aggressive hurricanes, just by the geography of the hurricanes die off a little bit by the time they get to where I am in upstate New York, where it's just a lot of rain. But, you know, we've still had plenty of branches go through a shed, you know, miss the car by this much.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think it's true. We just get so much rain here, and the trees grow very quickly. We have a lot of trees. I know that when people come to visit me, they say, oh, wow, you've got so many trees. And I love the trees, but then you just have to adjust to that.
Yeah.
And then the clay soil. So we don't have basements here. That's the big shock to a lot of people.
That was a shock for me too when I moved here. No basements.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare to see a basement. And even when you saw I'm making air quotes for those who can't see, basement, it wasn't really a basement. It's
a walkout.
It's a walkout, and they just made it ugly by using cinder block foundation walls and leaving columns in the middle of it. And it was just like tall enough foundation that they were, let's finish it and put a door. But it's not really a basement. Like when you think of basements,
it's
like when you think of Dorothy, like in Kansas,
right?
Like it down under the,
It's not like the one we had in Iowa, that's for sure. But there's also the mid-century modern architecture where that's kind of part of the fun of that, is that the downstairs is the big party room that opens to that lower level.
Yep, gets converted to the mother-in-law suite.
Yeah,
I see that a lot looking at homes. Now it's an Airbnb. I see that a lot. Mm-hmm. That walkout basement.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a good idea. It's an easy way to add that, offset that mortgage payment.
Yes, and I think that if you build to the lot and you're building into an incline, and you do make that a walkout, and you use that, you can have very interesting or more interesting living spaces. And so those are the new construction opportunities I really like to look at. I was working on one. We didn't end up doing it, but I was thinking very differently than the builder about how to use that steep, and it wasn't even that steep, but pretty steep lot. And then I helped clients recently buy kind of a complex lot, but because it's so interesting and unique, there's going to have to be a really special home built on it. And these clients were all over it. They wanted that. And so to me, that's a lot of fun to see what can happen when you're confined. And I've always been that way.
And doing something different is always cool.
Right. I've always been someone that make it a little bit too hard and see what we come up with. Either we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough space, or there's a stream running through it. What do we do with it?
I've come up against all three of those. Yeah. Designing my own home, it's a matter of not enough money. Yeah. Because I have so much space. I have 11 undeveloped acres, and there's like a massive, already flat, perfectly clear field for me to build my house on, right where I want to. And it's a matter of, okay, how do I afford all this crap that I've said I wanted over the years of looking at all these houses? So like, you're trying to do a span out of, need a truss the size of a Mack truck. Like, yeah, it's just, so, but that's the never ending story of trying to design a dream home. I'll check back in.
Yes, and a forever home. And
I'm trying to do all. I'm trying to make my second home, as this is my first. I'm trying to make my second home my dream and forever home. And also think about aging in place, as I have like a walking foot disorder that's genetic. So I'm thinking about all those things all at the same time, and it's impossible.
Well, impossible. I think that's one of the areas that we all need to look more at and be focused on, and that's aging in place or accessibility. And I'm one of these sort of dreamers. Why isn't the code just all, no lips or walk-in showers, wide doorways, wide hallways? I understand that we're moving in that direction, but we're not going to be there anytime soon. But if we could renovate our homes or build our homes so that they are mostly main floor living, everyone would like that. And some of the new construction, they've really taken the floor plans from the 55 plus communities, and they're just building them for everybody.
Yeah, the problem is, if you're a developer and there's, a third of an acre lot or less, a quarter of an acre lot, like you've driven by 100 of them in downtown Durham, you can't put a single level home and make any money. You need to build a 2.5 story with an unfinished attic or whatever at 1,600 square feet in order to even be in a competitive zone. Like in my case, to talk to your point of aging in place, I have so much land, and I'm also unfortunate to have a genetic nerve ending disease, but fortunate that at 32, I've been thinking about this for years already to be like, okay, wheelchair might be a possibility. Let's hope we don't get there, but why not put 32 or 36-inch doors everywhere? Like the cost of putting in, a 28-inch or a 30-inch door to a hallway or to whatever room versus a 36-inch door is very minimal. Almost the same, actually. So it's like it's just something that I don't think is really talked about until you need it. So
I've had people tell me, I go into a home and I say something to the effect of, well, this is almost an aging in home place, and they don't like the term.
Yeah, it's an ugly term.
They don't like that. So then we change it to accessible. But it could be, let's say you go to the gym all the time and you're 35 years old or whatever, and you trip out hiking or something and you break your leg. And then you're trying to get in and out of your insert shower tub thing. All of us could have different parts of our lives or times of our lives where it's just so hard to live in these homes. And so why don't we build them to make them totally accessible?
I had to have foot surgery last year, and I was trapped in my own home because I was on a knee scooter, could not drive, and there's steps.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of steps, but there are 6 steps to get out of my house.
Right.
Even though I live in a single level home.
Right.
And I redid my shower to make it Corbett sized. I'm a giant for those who don't know. And even still, I couldn't get in there without my knee scooter, like one step at a time, and my girlfriend's arm. There was no way. So, like, it's something, and I'm 32 and relatively healthy. Like, not my 75-year-old grandfather who, like, when they moved into a retirement community, had those handles everywhere. And you don't think of anything. That's what should be there when you move in your grandfather into a retirement home. But why couldn't we put a stylish version of those, or at least just think about putting wood backers in behind the sheetrock
and know where they are? And
exactly.
Then when you need them, they can be easily.
That's one of those things that could be done, and then you wouldn't have to look at it at all. Simply putting wood blocks between the studs and knowing, okay, there's some solid meat of wood right there to screw a handle into when the time comes. This is literally free because it's wood you're pulling from a garbage pile.
Right.
And if you just ask and bring pizza to your framers while they're already set up framing your house, they'll do it without even thinking about it because they're like, oh, sure. Like, can we change the hip height of the roof? This is, can you take some of the trash and before you walk it to the trash, chop it smaller and put it right there. Pop, 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 pop. So it's little things like that could just make the difference of like, okay, can we stay here whenever, I say we as in like an elderly couple, losing some mobility, or do we need to move somewhere? Like those little things can be the differences, how you design your shower lip,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. And it's not a lot of things if you're thinking about it. Well, we're talking out of the umbrella of new construction.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so much easier when you can do that as it's being built. What's interesting to me is And there are people who are certified aging in place specialists who can go into a home. And here's my experience with that. People don't call them early enough, or they do call them early enough, and then they decide, well, we'll just wait until it's too late. There's been a fall. They have to move to a different type of living arrangement for skilled nursing or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's human nature. We don't want to really believe that we're there.
No,
but we
and
are
it's
there.
terrifying.
And so at the moment we start thinking about it, I think we have to start renovating to plan for that, because it's going to be so much easier to live, and probably you'll get to live there longer or forever. But we put it off. And it's hard for me to hear these stories, because I know an aging and certified aging in place specialist who does go into homes, and a lot of times people put it off, and then there's the emergency call, and it may be too late.
It's more sad what you're describing, but unfortunately, this is most of homeownership.
It's true. We all want to put it off.
You put off replacing the water heater that you know is
Right.
over the 10-year mark
true.
until it breaks on 4th of July, right?
Right.
And then you have to call your plumber at an increased rate.
And the plumber is at the beach.
Oh, right.
And
or he's on
then
vacation.
Then the other plumber has to find, I mean, it's just.
Yeah. Down the list of things wrong we got to deal with.
So
Yeah.
I'm no better than, it is a very human thing, I think.
I believe we're all human, and we have that in common. We should remember that more, I think. And, it's also, it's funny. My dad had this handyman up in New York. I swear his real name was Rusty, and he's a plumber. But he's also like plumber, handyman, electrician, former trim carpenter. Like, he can just do everything. The guy shows up in a box truck, and if it's broken, he'll fix it.
Okay.
And one day he's fixing something that I swear my dad he's livid, because it's like something that's like 6 months old. It's something that should have lasted 10 years. And Rusty just is, sitting there kind of taking the harumph of it. It's not his fault, but, letting my dad vent. He's the paying customer. And finally, Rusty just replies, John, everything breaks or everything works till it breaks. Like, there's no like rhyme or reason to it. Like, sometimes that old appliance that your parents have is going to last 25 years. And sometimes you're going to buy something like I've bought power tools and they last 6 months.
Yeah.
And you've got to go get a new one. And how good's the warranty? But that's a different conversation. But it just, everything works till it breaks. And it's like, man, when you hear it, sometimes you just got to shrug your shoulders and go, okay, like, what are you going to do?
I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. And the other thing that I always think about, and I used to do this in marketing too, if we were going to try something new or something we didn't quite know was going to work, I'd say, well, thank goodness we're not brain surgeons. It's just marketing.
Yeah.
And I say that to myself about homes. Thank goodness it's just my home. So the water heater breaks or whatever, it's just my home. I try to think of the same way with my car. It's just a car with new tires. It's not about something major like my children or
your health.
My health.
Something.
And that's something.
Yeah.
So that's how I talk myself into, okay, it's just something I have to do, just repair it and forget about it.
Out of curiosity, because you've now mentioned it a few times, what do you do to market yourself as a former marketing person? Like, how do you get your name out there for people to find you in the real estate world versus somebody else?
So it has to be many different ways. that's one of the main reasons I do South Durham Rockstar Connect, is to just connect with more people. So I know more people, they know more people. I think in the way our world works right now, a lot of people are trying to use social media. They're trying to use these broad based mailers and that sort of thing. And I do a couple different things, I think, that are different, like Rockstar Connect, because that's an old fashioned way of doing it, but it's works. And then I write handwritten notes to people in in the neighborhoods where I feel like I'm an expert in the neighborhood. I know the neighborhood, and so I'm just looking for people who are interested in selling. Sometimes I write handwritten notes for my buyers if they are looking in a neighborhood and nothing is coming up. Maybe we will find
Try to find something that's not on the market.
Not on the market yet, but they are thinking about it. I do have a website. That's a passive way of marketing, but I do know that when people pass my name along, the new people will often check the website to see who I am, what people say about me. I'm not really good at asking my clients for reviews. That's one area that I'm really weak. But when my clients write reviews, it's because they took the initiative and wanted to write the reviews. And so they tend to be very rich and with lots of details, which I think is helpful.
I kind of retroactively texted a bunch of clients and I was like, hey, I'm kind of taking my Google listing a little bit more seriously. Would you mind clicking this link? And I sent it to 20 people and I got 6 of them. Mm-hmm. So it did help though. Like all of a sudden I had an empty Google listing and then I had 15 really good pictures that were edited by a friend and then some 5-star reviews. And I got some very random calls that I would not have been getting from people who simply typed Durham contractor into Google and found me. And this lady literally was like, "Oh, you had 5 stars on Google. Can you come fix my foundation?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go.
Awesome.
Let's do it." So yeah, it is a never ending keep up that I am awful at. The social
it is.
media
And
part.
I still think that the relationships matter. And I love when I get a referral from clients that I love working with, because those people tend to be really awesome and it just continues forward. So I think the word of mouth is really important. So
I think it's the most important.
Really caring about doing my best for my clients is the number one marketing thing I do. And I appreciate then that they feel like they should mention to their friends or people moving in or moving around that they had a great experience and they should call me. And then it's up to me to develop the relationship and move forward.
Is that, did you start the Rockstar Connect?
I did not. A couple other Fathom Realty agents based in Raleigh started it a number of years ago. They talked to me about it a number of years ago, and I didn't sign on right away. But as I saw our market changing and saw that we were having fewer homes on the market, and I realized that the old-fashioned way of just meeting new people was going to be a great way to market. And it's because we're not the type of networking group where everybody stands up and gives their little spiel.
Yeah.
It just feels better.
I couldn't agree more. It was I'll be back every month just because
Awesome.
I like NAMU also.
Right.
And I went there, there's no question I went there with business cards attempting to, at some point, hopefully get a job and make some money. But the fact that it could be relaxed and fun and literally the conversation, nothing about work from anybody.
Right.
Like,
The sword?
The sword guys. Oh my God. I don't remember the other dude, but Tom and that other dude, Jen and I laughed about
I loved that
evening for a while.
That was the reason to come to South Durham Rock.
I mean,
Rockstar
how many
Connect.
people are expert in ancient German swords? I don't even know what it was.
They had different specialties, and the thing I felt best about is that environment and that group allowed both of them to say something about themselves that maybe would not necessarily come out in another networking
100%. A week later, this past week, in fact, I was at a BNI, which is like a business networking international, whatever.
Right.
And it was like formal. Everybody who was a member gave their 30-second spiel. There was a timer. And then all the guests gave their 30-second spiel. And there was like no personal information at all. And it was the opposite. And I didn't know what it was. Somebody just kind of told me, like, hey, you should come to this if you're not busy. And I was like, okay, there's a food truck. And which I didn't even eat at. But anyway, but it was the opposite and not as much fun. And I exchanged less cards, even though there were more people. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, I think really connecting. I went to conference or get together networking event, financial institution put together, and it was for women, and it was an auditorium, so I was getting ready to sit and listen, and I picked the middle front, and I just sat down, and there were all these seats. I sat down early, all these seats open, and a young woman walks in. She walks all the way down to my row. She comes over and she sits right beside me. And that's very unusual. If there are all these seats, people tend to put spaces between them, right? We don't want to get too close. Don't know these people. And I turned to her and we introduced myself and I asked her what she was working on. And interestingly enough, she's a showrunner for reality television shows that skew male. And I thought, that's crazy interesting. And we started talking and got very quickly into deeper subjects. And she said, well, I was just trying to figure out how I was going to actually get through this. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I just don't know how to be at these events. And, oh, I know. I said, why did you come and sit beside me? And she said, I didn't know how I was going to get through these types of events, and you seemed like the nicest person.
Just because you were sitting up front.
There was something, I don't know. But it was really fascinating because she was having some struggles with her career and what was going on. And but we connected so well that she got really emotional. And this was an event that she just didn't know how to deal with, and it worked out great. And so then later we had a reason to cross paths, and so that was fun.
That's lovely. That's so great. That's so heartfelt. Thank you for that. That's incredible.
Well, and so that's why I really like to encourage people to, when they come to my Rockstar events, to just talk to people about what's going on with them, because maybe they need their jeans hemmed, and the best tailor around. I mean, just know it. And so many people don't know where are new, so they don't know where anything is. So I like to also think of myself as a tour guide. Yeah,
there were 2 or 3 people there who were kind of like, you could tell they were half there for a business and half because they were like, oh, I've been here for 6 months. I don't know anybody.
I don't know anything, so I thought I'd come.
Yeah.
And
I remember one of them was like, I think I need an oil change and I don't know where to go. And I was like, you want to go to Massey Brothers to talk to Vince? Like, I could tell you right away where to go. Yeah. Like it was shout out to Vince at Massey Brothers.
Yeah.
If you
go.
If you need anything done, he's the man. Yeah, no, I'm a big advocate for the networking building. This podcast has definitely 5% of it has morphed into a networking and promoting event, you know. And as we're wrapping up here, can you tell people how they would find you to be your realtor? What's the website, phone number, email? What's the best way to hire you to?
Probably the easiest way is to just Google my name. It's very unique, but the name that I use for the website address is Lovig, Lovig, no N, realty-nc.com. You'll get my website. My email address is deb@lovig-realty-nc.com. Numbers 919-656-8646. Lots of sixes.
Yeah.
That might tell you something, at least in the South. But yeah. So,
and then
come to every first Wednesday 6 to 8.
Just the first Wednesday of the month.
Just the first Wednesday.
Okay. From 6 to 8 at Namu, however you pronounce it, over on Chapel Hill Boulevard.
Right.
By the Home Depot.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, that event is very fun and relaxed. Really, really trying to promote anybody who's listening. Like, it's fun and the atmosphere is great and the food is also fantastic. So, like, you're going to win.
You can win
either way.
No matter what.
Yeah. And as always, the Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and CRS Contracting on all of the above. If you want to reach out to be on the podcast or want me to talk about something specific on the podcast, feel free to do that on any of those platforms. We're graced with Willie Bear, the studio dog, today, and we'll leave it there. So thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.